Welcome to Our Special Lives. I'm Laura McGrath, and today we're talking about elevators, all about the cost, which elevator company to use, and what the process is like. So if you're thinking about an elevator or need an elevator for your special needs child, you're not going to want to miss this episode. The topic of elevators can be pretty overwhelming for parents of special needs children. There's always a lot of questions about the cost, how do you pay for it, which elevator company do you use, what's the process like, and I'm going to answer all of those questions today based on our personal experience installing our elevator. So let's tackle the first question. How much does it cost? So the cost is really variable, and the cost kind of falls into two buckets. The first bucket is the cost of the elevator itself. And most elevators cost somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000. That price is a little variable because it depends on which kind of elevator you get and then how many bells and whistles you want with your elevator. The second bucket of cost is what do you have to do to your home to accommodate the elevator? The elevator needs to sit in a shaft of some sort. The shaft can go between 2 floors. It can go between 3 floors. Sometimes it can interfere with the roof line. Sometimes, the exterior can be very expensive material. So it just depends on how much construction you have to do to your house, and that will dictate the cost of the installation on top of the cost of the elevator. In having conversations with the architect who helped us with the design plan for our elevator, we learned that it's always less expensive to add the elevator on to the exterior of your home than to try to fit an elevator in the existing interior of your home. There's also some additional costs. I just mentioned the architect who charges a fairly standard architect fee to draw the plans which are needed for the permitting. And then you'll need a general contractor who can build the elevator shaft and any other home modifications that need to be made to accommodate the elevator. So this gets us to our next topic, which is how to pay for an elevator. Most elevators are paid for out of pocket, but there are a couple of resources that I wanted to go through in case you're thinking about putting in an elevator. You may not have all the money needed to pay cash for the elevator. And so I'm going to throw a few ideas out there for things that you might want to look into. So, of course, if your child, your special needs child, has an ABLE account or a special needs trust, an elevator to move them between floors in your house would qualify as an expense where you could use those accounts to defray some of the costs. There are also certain banks that provide bank loans for home modifications for disabled people. So you may have to do some Googling, you may have to talk to your banker. Some of these programs are available, or another choice might be a home equity line of credit where you can borrow against the equity in your home to finance the elevator. Some Medicaid waiver plans have a home modification benefit. For example, my son gets a $5,000 home modification benefit every year through his waiver. And so there might be the possibility that you can use funds that you would get in 1 year along with funds that you would get in the second year if the project kind of straddles those two fiscal years. That might help defray the cost somewhat. Rarely, but sometimes primary insurance will have a bucket of money or a stipend for home modifications for disabled people. And occasionally there are state assistive technology programs which provide funding for assistive technology projects, which the elevator would be considered one of those. Another program that might be available is a source of funding under FHA or the Federal Housing Administration. And they apparently have some loans available for home modifications. So that might be another place to check. So the next thing we're going to talk about is which elevator company to use. This was actually a bit of an overwhelming topic for my husband and I as we were researching elevator companies, because there are a lot of elevator companies, but there are a lot of elevator companies with very bad reviews. And so we did not want to make a mistake when it came to selecting the right elevator company. It just so happened that as we were in the process of making this decision, my husband went to Texas and stayed in a home where he experienced this incredible home elevator, and took a picture of the manufacturer and brought it home, and we researched it, and that is the elevator company that we ended up using, which is Residential Elevator. I'm not paid by Residential Elevator. We have just been so thrilled with our experience with this company that I want to offer it as a really good choice if you're looking into elevators. One of the things I love about it, well, I love many things about it. One of the things I love about it is it's one of the only elevator companies in the country, maybe the only, that manufactures and installs the elevator. So why is this important? Because if you select an elevator company that just manufactures it and you have another third party install the elevator, if there are problems or issues, you have those two companies pointing the finger at each other, and it can be a really difficult situation. Residential Elevator literally handles everything from the manufacturer to the install, and we even have our service contract with them. So they're literally from the start to finish the people who are handling the elevator, which we love. It's much more simple to deal with one company for any issues or problems. Of course, I'm going to link to this below so that you can check this company out. You can read all about them. So when you're getting an elevator, there's a choice that you have to make. There's a saying that the house picks the elevator, the people don't pick the elevator. And what that means is that there's two basic types of elevators. There's hydraulic and then there's traction. And traction is kind of an electric winding drum. And I'm not an elevator expert, so this is my understanding of it. There might be a different explanation, but there's a hydraulic elevator which works based on a water system, and then there is the traction elevator, which is a winding drum. Residential Elevator offers both of those. The issue with the hydraulic is that it's slightly more complicated in its mechanism. And so for us, we felt like we wanted the more simple mechanism because we really couldn't afford to have the elevator stop working at any point. And we were worried that with the slightly increased complication of hydraulic, that we could encounter a problem. The other thing is the hydraulic requires a larger footprint because it needs like a mechanical room or mechanical space. And we wanted to try to keep our footprint as small as possible, because that factors into the cost as well. So we went with the traction elevator. That gets us to our next topic, what does an elevator look like? I'm going to show you some pictures, but basically the description is that on each floor that your elevator stops on, there is a door that looks like a regular door in your home, except that it's got a call button on the side of it. So you open the door, and then there's an accordion door on the interior, and that's for safety. Beyond the accordion is the elevator car itself. One of the things that surprised me when we were going through this process is that the largest residential elevator that you can get is 3 feet by 4.5 feet, which if you measure that out on the ground, it's not a whole lot of space. It basically fits my son in his wheelchair and then an adult standing next to him, but there's really not a whole lot of room. So don't be expecting the spacious elevator like the kind, in a commercial office building. It's pretty small. It'll do the job. It will accommodate an adult in a wheelchair and one other person, but it's a little bit of a squeeze. I'm going to show you some pictures of the interior right here. You'll notice with the pictures of our elevator, we went with a very simple design. You can have a super fancy interior with all kinds of custom wood designs and lights, and you can really go crazy. Again, for cost reasons, we wanted to keep it really simple. So how does the elevator actually work? I'm going to cut to a video that shows getting on the elevator, being in the elevator, and then exiting the elevator so you can get a little sense right here. So the last thing I want to talk about is the process for installation. So what happens is you sign a contract with the elevator company once you decide on the specifics of the elevator that you want. Then the elevator company works with your general contractor to make sure that the shaft that they're building, hopefully on the outside of your home, so it's not super expensive, is going to work with the elevator car. The order of operations is that the contractor builds the shaft first, and the length of time that that takes really depends on a number of factors. For us, like I mentioned, we only did it between 2 floors, because doing it from our lower level all the way up to our 3rd floor was prohibitively expensive, because we would have had to change the roof line and remove windows and really do a lot of kind of architectural manipulation to get that elevator to the 3rd floor. So we just did it from the lower level floor to the 1st floor. Luckily, my son's bedroom is on the 1st floor, so that was a perfectly fine choice for us. But the process is that once you figure out where you want the elevator to stop, then the contractor builds the shaft, and then the elevator company comes in and they laser measure so that they are 100% guaranteed that the custom car is going to fit in the elevator shaft. So then they build the car, and the contractor continues to do some additional work on the shaft, and then you wait for the car to be delivered, and then the car is installed, in our case by Residential Elevators, because they do both the manufacture and the design. One tip is that typically the elevator shafts don't have HVAC. So they're fully exposed to the elements, and it can actually get quite hot or quite cold in that shaft in the elevator. And so to moderate or modulate the temperature a little bit, we chose to do spray foam insulation all throughout the elevator shaft so that it would be not super hot in the summer and not super cold in the winter. There is a bit of a temperature differential when we get in the elevator, but it's not bad with that spray foam insulation. So once the elevator car is ordered, it takes probably 6 to 8 weeks to have it delivered, because it's custom made for each home, and then they put it on a truck. The manufacturing plant is in Florida, and they drive it to wherever it's going in the country. When you go to the Residential Elevator website, you can see all the states where they install and deliver elevators. So once you order your elevator, it takes about 6 or 8 weeks to be delivered and installed. And then some finish work needs to happen related to the shaft and the flooring and a few other things. So I'd say from start to finish, a realistic timeline for installation of an elevator is probably 4 to 6 months. It just depends on the availability of the manufacturing facility as far as how quickly they can start your car. It depends on the availability of the contractor and then the subcontractors. Like in our case, we had a big delay initially because the framer was so backed up. And especially now with COVID and a lot of people doing renovations, I know that certain subcontractors are very backed up in terms of their work. So if you're thinking about starting one in the next, like, 6 to 8 months, understand that there may be some delays in the subcontractor work that's necessary before the elevator can be installed. One other little detail, there is a dial pad in the elevator, and that's a safety feature in case something happens with the elevator and there's an emergency and the door won't open or something like that. You have to have a phone line that goes into the elevator. So nowadays with cell phones, a lot of people don't have landlines. Having a landline and having access from the phone line into the elevator is a necessary safety feature. So that's just something little to keep in mind. So that's it. That's the summary for installing an elevator in your home. I hope this was useful and pointed you in the right direction. If this is a project that you're thinking about undertaking, please feel free to leave questions or comments below. Happy to help answer any specific questions if this is something that you're considering. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share.